we all have it in our ancestry. And so it's this amazing kind of unifying thing that I really try and use to bring people together because, you know, we are very, very divided right now. And it's really easy to focus on that and kind of get stuck in that. And I just encourage people to think about our most amazing common denominator, the chicken. Like, think about that. And if you're really frustrated, go outside and hold a baby chick. You won't be frustrated anymore.
Welcome to the show called Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. We want to affirm, encourage, challenge, and inspire you in this adventure of a lifetime and celebrate everything you get to experience along the way. Today's show is titled Chickenlandia. I bet I got your attention, didn't I? Well, we have a special guest, and that is Dalia Monterroso. So, Dalia, let's talk homeschool.
Yes, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. So I'm going to introduce you properly, but then you got to give the bio. Ladies and gentlemen, okay. This is Madam President, the president of Chickenlandia. So if you aren't interested in listening to the rest of this show with that introduction, I don't know what we can do to make a better show. So tell us just the brief bio, quick introduction, and I got some things that I want to ask you as we learn about what it's like to be the president of Chickenlandia.
Sure. My name is Dalia. I am also known as the president of Chickenlandia. I am a backyard chicken educator. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I have a YouTube channel. I'm an author, but my main mission is to just share the joy and peace of chicken keeping because it has really changed my life, and I love to see it changing other people's lives.
Well, it is interesting that you call it chicken keeping. I keep wanting to say chicken peeping because I'm listening for the chickens. But how did you get started in this, and how did the passion grow? And just tell us a little bit about the journey into this.
Oh my goodness! Well, I was living. We had moved here. I met. Okay, let me just back up a little bit. I was working in Los Angeles as a personal assistant. I had these big aspirations. I wanted to be a writer for show business, a director, you know, the next great American movie maker, all that great stuff. And I was there for about 5 years. I met who is now someone who's now my husband. And I just we decided together we don't want to raise kids in LA. And so I was like, you know what? I had all these dreams, but my drive to be a mother and to have a family is bigger than those dreams. So I'm going to let this go. And we moved to Bellingham, Washington, which is where we live right now. And, you know, I had a little boy, a little baby boy. He was a little over a year old. And I just started to feel like, you know, I need something that is my own. I need some other way to identify other than just being a mom and being a wife, even though I loved those things. I loved my family. But what I didn't realize is that I was actually dealing with a pretty serious case of postpartum depression. But because, and I know that mothers that are listening to this, they will relate, you know, we just soldier on. And we put all of our focus on our family. And so I didn't really realize what was happening to me. But I just decided, you know what? I'm going to get some chickens. And so I started
that sounds like an obvious solution.
Yes. It really is a solution to so many things, I promise. But so I did all the research and everything, and I went to the farm store and I brought home this bag. They put the baby chicks in a bag, in like a paper sack. So I got home and I'm taking these baby chicks out of this paper sack, and all of a sudden I mean, it's like divine intervention. That's how it feels to me, because I feel like a new dream, like my heart opened in that moment. A new dream for my life was able to come in because I was mourning the loss of my dreams on top of having this postpartum depression experience. And I also feel like that was really the moment that I started to heal. And I think, it has to just do with that connection with nature. Like I had the baby chicks and I was caring for them. I was 1,000,000% focused on them and passionate about them to the point where my family was like, can we see a picture of the baby? Like, you're, we know what your chickens look like. And of course, I was still taking care of my family, but it gave me that outlet and this new experience. And I really felt a lot of peace when I was outside with my chickens. And that helped me to kind of come out of that really dark period of my life and bring me back to my family in a way where I could be present with them.
Right.
So
Now,
I feel like I owe a lot to chickens because
so I got a question about homeschooling. Would you consider yourself to have been homeschooling at this point in time with a baby, or did the decision and the journey of homeschooling come after the chickens?
Well, I homeschooled. I'm not home. I need to be 100% transparent here. I'm not homeschooling now. My children are in private school, but I did homeschool for a period of time. And I regret that I didn't make chicken keeping more of our curriculum. I think it would have really changed some things, both for my experience with it and for my son, because it was kind of a traumatic experience that caused us to need to homeschool. And one thing that chickens can do, and I tell other people that are homeschooling this, because I have an online course, so I have a lot of homeschoolers that take that course and use it as part of their curriculum. And one thing that I will say is that if you're ever struggling, and we all have those days when we're struggling, and I know that when we were homeschooling, I struggled. And it would have been so much better if I would have just taken a moment to just go outside and be with the chickens and take that break and get that reset, because I really feel like that's a lot. That is such a huge part of what chickens do for me, is they just help me to get that reset and to start over. And for kids, I think that's just a wonderful thing and a wonderful way to kind of just break up the monotony of the day, but also, if you're having a frustrating moment, just go outside and throw some mealworms to the chickens. I promise you'll feel better.
Well, is there any like one or two specific memories that are special that you think back on that you think our listeners might resonate with and help them in understanding the appeal?
Well, I think one of the best experiences that you can have, and really a magical experience for children, is to hatch baby chicks. I at one point I had this little broody hen, and when I say she's broody, that means that she wants to brood baby chicks. She wants to sit on eggs and hatch out baby chicks and be their mom. So she had that really strong drive to do that. And she was wanting to sit on eggs. So I went to a friend of mine and I got some duck eggs, some call duck eggs. And call ducks are like very small. They're like miniature ducks, very loud, I've realized. So I put some duck eggs under this little mother hen. And unfortunately, none of the eggs, like most of the eggs, did not make it, but there was one egg that she hatched out and a little duck came out. And that hen raised that duck, lovingly raised that little duck, and the duck thought she was a chicken. Like she would even try to like roost up higher. I ended up getting some ducks after that because I was like, oh, this is, she should have duck friends. But she was always trying to get with her mother. and they really lived the rest of their lives as little partners in the chicken yard. And that hen died. She was very old when she died. And she passed away, and then within a month, the little duck passed away too. And I just think they wanted to be together, and it was just such a beautiful experience for my children.
Oh,
And
that's absolutely precious. I mean, it painted all kinds of vivid pictures for myself. Just because I remember when I was a kid, and we hatched some eggs, some chicken eggs in the school, in second
Yes.
grade or something. And it was fascinating waiting and taking care and keeping the heat lamps. And then when they started to poke their little way out of the eggs, it's mesmerizing.
Yes.
And there is some kind of bond that happens. So, I can already start to imagine what it might be like for homeschool families that are already doing this or want to do this, how they can see some of the natural ways that this could help their families with memories like that. But what about other takeaways or unexpected life skills or lessons that come from chicken keeping that you've learned or that you've heard from families that have taken your courses? What are some of the other big advantages?
Well, I think the most fascinating thing about the chicken yard is that it's like a mini world. It's a little mini society. There's like a micro environment. There is basically any subject that you're looking to teach in your homeschool environment, you can go out to the chicken yard and find a reflection of that and use that in your practical teaching, whether it's, obviously science, math, social skills, just like learning about interaction, looking at the dynamics of the chicken yard and thinking about how people relate with each other. And of course, just basic life things like just the cycle of life is a huge one. But I think really the most important skill, I think, is that you get that connection with nature every day. And in today's modern society, we are forever pulled away from that. And our children are growing up in an environment where it's like not uncommon for them not to get any outside interaction at all day long. And even if you are being super mindful about it and doing everything you can, eventually it's going to become difficult to remember to have that connection with nature every day once your child goes out and into the world. And so I think when you incorporate it into everyday life, you make it a part of your life. It's a part of your routine. Chickens don't care if you don't feel good. They don't care if you want to stay in bed. They don't care if you want to play video games. They don't care if you want to be on your phone. You have to go outside and take care of them.
Now I'm curious. Do your kids have like a large amount of responsibility in taking care of your chicken yard, or how much time is involved, and how much are your kids in particular involved in the responsibilities?
They were more involved when they were younger. I think, as they have gotten older, it's like, okay, well, there's mom, there's mom with her chickens. It's because they've grown up with it. But my oldest, he's 14 right now, and I do some traveling throughout the year because I teach at different, I do seminars and stuff. And so when I'm gone, he is 100% responsible for the chickens. And that's a big responsibility for him. My little one, he's not as interested right now, but he will collect eggs. He'll go outside and give them treats and everything. But I'm really wanting to get him more involved. And I'm also wanting to, my oldest is wanting to get a job. And so he's like, oh, I want to go work at Taco Time or something. And I'm like, well, instead of working at Taco Time and eating tacos every day, why don't you work in the chicken yard and have that be your first job? And I think he's ready to kind of get more down and dirty out there, because there are some parts of the job that really little kids, they're the kids that are putting their hands in their mouth and stuff. You want to keep it very simple with them. But once they get older and a little more aware of their body and everything, then they can start doing more intense chores. So I think he is going to start doing some more heavy lifting out there, because now he's a lot taller than me too. So
always good to have some good help. So
Yes.
if a family is interested in starting their own chicken keeping journey, and I know, like you said, many homeschool families are raising chickens. What is some advice that you would want to give them to either get started, to some of the lessons you learned early that you can help them avoid the pitfalls at the beginning? But what would you recommend to a family that's getting ready to start or is early in this type of a journey?
I would say number one is don't make it too complicated. There is a lot of information out there. And I know when I first got started, I ended up getting kind of confused because there's so much information. A lot of the information is conflicting. And especially in the Western world, we've had this way of complicating this practice a little more than it should be, because this was traditionally over the millennia a very sustainable, very simple practice. The poorest people in the world have chickens, but yet in the US and in other parts of the Western world, we have this concept where you have to have a lot of gadgets, you have to do all these things, everything has to be a certain way. And I really just want people to remember that this is within us. We have been doing this for thousands of years. It's in almost every culture in the world has it as a significant part of our history. So it should really come as the most natural thing in the world for you. And I do want to say, because, as you get chickens and everything, you'll probably want to get some support. People join groups and everything. But the most important person whose advice you should follow is your own intuition. Because like I said, we have this within us, and there will be situations where it is very specific to your situation and you can ask advice about it, and you'll get all this conflicting stuff and you won't know what to do. And in those moments, I really just ask people to listen to their intuition, do some reflection, and ask yourself, okay, what feels right to me? And I think that's so important to pass that life skill on to your children. Like that is huge.
So you're basically saying there's a lot of common sense can go a long way in chicken keeping.
So much common sense. So much common sense. I mean, my grandmother had chickens. They lived in a tree. My great grandmother had them. They lived in a tree. And I'm not suggesting your chickens should live in a tree, because if they live in a tree and it's 40 degrees below, that won't be good.
Right.
And also there's predators to think about. But I always tell people, keep that as your foundation. Think about how people all over the world are keeping chickens and how it's just this part of their everyday life. It's a very simple practice, and keep that as your foundation as you move through your chicken keeping adventure.
Okay. So what is your personal favorite part of this? I mean, you clearly are exuding joy in being, having chickens for, quite a long time, but I'm curious, what do you find the most enjoyable personally?
I did not know how peaceful I would feel in the chicken yard and how important a part of my day that would be. And when I got chickens and I started to realize that it was almost like it was like this moment of stillness for me. It was almost like a prayer, like a daily meditation that I take every day that's so important for my well-being. And I just didn't know that that's how it was going to be. And then I started talking to other people that keep chickens, and they were like, oh yeah, we experienced that too. And I realized, okay, so I'm having this experience. There's somebody all the way on the other side of the world living a life that would seem so alien from mine, but they're keeping chickens and they're also having that experience. And not only are they having that experience now, but they have, we've all shared this common experience throughout our ancestry. Like we all have it in our ancestry. And so it's this amazing kind of unifying thing that I really try and use to bring people together because, we are very, very divided right now. And it's really easy to focus on that and kind of get stuck in that. And I just encourage people to think about our most amazing common denominator, the chicken. Think about that. And if you're really frustrated, go outside and hold a baby chick. You won't be frustrated anymore.
I also have to ask you this question. You describe yourself as the president of Chickenlandia. Is that self-appointed, or was there some kind of ceremony that allowed this to happen? Give me a little history of that.
I really believe if my chickens could write, if they could use the machines, if they could if they could fill in the little bubble, they would vote for me.
Okay.
But somehow I just keep getting reelected, and it's been very convenient.
So there's no term limits for this, it sounds like. Oh, that's great. So, we can't talk about just the positives. Is there any part of the responsibility that you really would prefer to delegate to other people, whether it's your kids or it's just, a nasty, dirty, or frustrating part of the job?
Yeah. Someone else please clean the coop. It's dirty. Chickens poop a lot. They poop a lot. Okay. So that is one thing that you need to know. I also have ducks, and ducks are like really, really cute, and they're funny, and they've got funny personalities, but they poop a lot too. And their poop is like wet mud. And it's just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness you're so cute. So that is definitely a part of the job that I don't love, cleaning out the coop, scraping poop off the roost. But again, it becomes, when I'm out there and I'm doing the chores, I'm hearing the chickens, I'm watching them peck and scratch. I'm hearing them make their little sounds that they make. And after a while, I feel good. I feel lifted being out there, even when I'm shoveling chicken poo.
Now, I have eggs for breakfast every morning. Is that part of this experience for you as well? Do you sell the eggs? Do you use them in your own cooking, or what happens? What are the pieces that are I'll say the productive parts of this chicken cycle?
Oh yes, it's so funny because when I first got them, I was like, well, I want fresh eggs in the morning, and that's usually where people start. They're like, well, I want eggs, so I'm going to get some chickens, and then they're like so pleasantly surprised by how each little chicken has its own personality, and they're really fun, and they're like pets to them. And then all of a sudden they get their first egg and they're like, I almost forgot about that. This is a bonus, an extra bonus. So yes, I have standard sized chickens, and I have bantam chickens, and the bantams lay little tiny eggs that are delicious, and the standards lay a good amount of big, nice eggs. It's definitely a huge part of why I do it. And I think it's so important for every family to have access to it because it is, so nutritionally dense, a great source of protein. And it's definitely part of my passion to make it something that everybody has access to. And I think that can be another lesson that you talk about in your homeschooling program, just the nutritional aspects of it, not only your own, our nutrition, like when we're eating eggs or meat, but also the chicken, like what does it take? What does the chicken need to eat? What does it take for them to produce this perfect protein for us every day? And so that can be a lesson as well. So Yeah, it's a wonderful part of chicken keeping. And I don't sell my eggs. I don't sell the eggs. I just rather give them away. So that's what I do.
Well, I like that system. One last question for you. What about getting new chickens? Do you, when some die naturally, I don't know if you're eating any of the chickens themselves, but do you try to get eggs to be fertilized to bring in new chicks, or do you buy them like you did the first batch?
I rescue a lot of chickens, actually. I mentioned that I feel like I owe a lot to chickens because of how they've changed my life. That experience is not for everyone, because whenever you bring in chickens from other areas, you do risk disease, and I have dealt with that in my flock. I've also hatched out, I've had hens hatch out baby chicks, but you've always got to think about roosters. Because whether you're using an incubator or you're hatching out baby chicks, you're going to get roosters. So I just tell people, have a plan, because even if you can have a rooster where you live, you have to have the right number of hens per rooster. So if you have 5 hens and 4 roosters, that's really not a good situation.
Right.
So just take those things into consideration. But yeah, I do adopt a lot of chickens. I've got a lot of special needs chickens. I've got chickens that walk sideways and chickens that are very old. Most people cannot do that because they need to, it's too expensive, and it really should be something that is not costing you a lot of money. So, and then, whenever you add chickens into your chicken yard, you've got to kind of follow a process, because there's the whole pecking order. And that's another thing that you can talk to your kids about, because there is a very strong hierarchy within a chicken yard. And if you just throw new chickens in there, the new chickens will not do well. They will get attacked. So there's a whole process that you have to follow in order to integrate new chickens. And you can talk about what that means. You can talk about what it means, thinking about how humans relate to each other and how we can get along better and all that stuff. There's just always a lesson in everything you do in the chicken yard.
It sounds like it, and more than anything, it sounds like you are having an absolute blast. You are thoroughly enjoying this. There's no doubt about that. So is there any last thing you'd like to share with us that we haven't talked about today?
Oh, gosh. I really believe this is a way. I guess I did talk about this earlier, but I do believe chicken keeping is a way for us to learn more about ourselves. And I love to see children learning that. You can learn about your own history. You can learn about world history. You can learn about other people's history, and also see the beautiful way that it all kind of ties together. And I really feel like that's such an important lesson in today's world, as our children grow out into the world, that they have something that reminds them that, human beings are all connected, and that's very important. So I think that would be the one thing I would share. I would love to share the most.
Well, and before we wrap this up, please tell people where they can find you online, or whatever kind of contact information you want to share during the show.
Sure. So most people know me through my YouTube channel. It's called Welcome to Chickenlandia. There's tons of free videos on my YouTube channel. I also have a podcast. It's called Bach Talk. That's TAWK. And that's on all the major podcast apps. I have an online course, and this is where I have become familiar with lots of homeschooling families. So that you can find on my website, information about that on my website. It's WelcometoChickenlandia.com. And I also released a book in February. It's called Let's All Keep Chickens. And so that you can find on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Tractor Supply, all the major book places, and hopefully your local bookstore. So, but everything, all of this information is at WelcometoChickenlandia.com.
Well, it's always hard to bring these conversations to a close, especially the fun ones like this. So I want to thank our guest, Dalia Monterroso, for joining us today. She's the president of Chickenlandia. As always, you're welcome to send us feedback. That would be podcast@apologia.com. This podcast has been brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. Hope you all have a great day. And as always, we are walking by faith and enjoying the homeschooling adventure of a lifetime.